Just want to have a little rant about perspective and some of the crap I see in the comments section sometimes on YouTube. About a month ago, Donald Trump was there imitating Rubio, and he had a little water bottle and holding the water bottle beside him, and ends up turfing the water bottle over his shoulder, and somebody writes in the comments, "Oh, here Trumpy's throwing this water bottle over his shoulder, and meanwhile there's poor little black kids in Flint, Michigan who don't have enough water, don't have clean water to drink and all this." Well, where the fuck's this come from? What's he supposed to do? Get on his plane, fly halfway across America just to give some little black kid the 1/3 of a bottle of water that he had? Let's get some perspective here. This is almost like, say if I put up a video of myself at one of these local farms around here, of sitting in a, underneath a grain silo, and there's a bit of grain on the ground, so I just sort of sweep it off the concrete onto the edge of the grass, and mice eat it or birds eat it or something like that. Is somebody going to go, oh, look, there's a few handfuls of wheat and he just swept it into the grass like it doesn't matter, and he could have put that in an envelope and sent it to some poor kid in Africa who is starving. Let's get some perspective here. There's someone in a video to do with Elvis, and you could probably guess who. Someone who makes a point of taking up Elvis's challenges to track him down, and he said, it's funny how we put in, there's so many videos putting effort into e-beggars and pointing out these e-beggars as being lazy bastards and whatever. Meanwhile, nobody says anything about the slave masters who take our labour and our property by force. Well, I'd like to point out there that there's so many videos on the federal government, on the Federal Reserve System, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to make a video of? Well, there's a Federal Reserve, and it's not actually federal, and there's 12 or 15 banks. We're not sure if it's 12, we're not sure if it's 15 banks that are privately owned that control the Federal Reserve, and it's probably old Rothschild and blah, 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 but flaming hell, what are you going to do? Stand out in front of the Federal Reserve and video Ben Bernanke walking past and go, I've got proof he's got fleas in his beard? You're going to say, old man Rothschild's got shit sunglasses, which he does, but what are you going to do? Individually troll members of the Federal Reserve, make another video that's conspiracy theory, the Federal Reserve, People hear so much of these videos of the Federal Reserve, of the federal government doing this and that, of the boogie monster that they're never going to see, who you can't exactly name, who you can't give exact figures on because there's a different amount of banks who control the Federal Reserve in 2016 as there was in 1913 when it was first created. And there's no list officially, of who it... We're pointing out slack asses. You've got homeless people, you've got old guys who have had bank accounts frozen, who I've come across personally, people who are getting ripped off, and meanwhile you've got these lazy e-beggars who get up at 3:40 p.m, that's when they get out of bed, and they show this on video, and I don't know what the hell it is with all these RV dwellers who can't fix fucking vehicles, can't do basic maintenance on vehicles. I had to go to a mechanic who diagnosed that I had a shit starter motor. I can't change my fucking oil. I can't put in a few inches of fuel. Fucking hell! If you're going to go around the United States of America in an RV, you should at least know how to change your fucking oil. You should at least know how to replace a few inches of fuel line. Do a bit of basic shit. I mean, my brake pads are squeaking. There must be something wrong. I went to get a refund and they wouldn't give me my money back. Fucking hell! Sandpaper the bloody things. Someone else said put a bit of CRC on them. There's nothing wrong with the damn things anyway. And on top of that, then you got to get a mechanic to fix brake pads which are squeaking, which there's nothing wrong with, but let's pay a mechanic to replace them as opposed to replace them ourselves. But if you're smart enough to replace brake pads, you'd probably know that just because they squeak doesn't actually mean they're worn out. You know, you look at the metal part and how much of the actual brake pad you've got left, and that'll tell you if it's worn out or not. But honestly, you know, you stick to pointing out obvious slack asses, you know, who don't need help and are whinging for help. You know, and as a society as a whole, we need to be productive for the country to function. Not all of us, but when you see people who are begging for help who don't need it, you can't help but say something. As opposed to going and chasing the Federal Reserve or the this or the that. And if you want to assume that, you know, oh, the slave masters, well, yeah, you know, it might be the Federal Reserve, but I worked out a while ago, like when I was at the piggery, you know, that dude is worth millions. I mean, he's not the manager there, he's not the boss there, he's the owner, but he's got, you know, 8 or so different businesses, or 10 businesses. He did have about 12, but he got rid of a couple of gyms that he owned. And at the end of the day, he's down in fucking cattle class with all the rest of us because he's got to kiss ass to the banks as well. And if you think some of these bosses are slave masters, well, they're not. My brother-in-law can tell you that he had to work 3 hours for every hour that he employed an employee they had, and then still only break even and not be able to take any money home for himself. Working 3 hours for every 1 hour he could hire his employee. And this whole idea that, you know, we're getting ripped off red raw by your boss, well, not necessarily, because plenty of businesses go bankrupt. And I remember when I had a business, I didn't go bankrupt, but I went to talk to a debt collection agency that's one of the best known ones in the city. And they told me that every morning, bang, you know, they have a list come in of all the businesses that have gone bankrupt. It's downloaded or whatever. It's basically printed out every morning. And she said there's heaps of them. You know, it's every week there were 35 to 40 businesses going under. And some of these involve businesses in the capital as well. But she said, you know, it's sad to see all these people's dreams being crushed. And she's more worried about their dreams being crushed rather than the fact that, you know, any employees also lost their job in the process. And, you know, people were out of pocket as a result of these businesses going down, particularly their suppliers. But anyway, it's good to get a bit of perspective, and it's good to not aim at people that are impossible to hit, but aim at people that are possible to hit and are possible to expose, and individuals who are out in the open and slack asses, not just ending up making these mad conspiracy theory videos about banks that you can't name, people that you can't name, who are all above us. And we all know this, you know, we all know this, those of us who have got our heads screwed on. But, yeah, it's flogging a dead horse, as opposed to guys who think it's a good idea to talk down to everybody in order to get them to donate. Well, they're not even smart enough to change their own vehicle oil. And that's the sort of people that we need to help? No.